Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 804. Well, with everything that's going on with the coronavirus, with our economy, I've kind of shifted gears temporarily on the show just a little bit to try and help you all out. Those of you who are running your own businesses, you're engaged in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial endeavors. What can we do to help you get through these trying times with different challenges, but also with different opportunities? So today, I'm having Roger Hanagriff from Texas A&M back on the show. We're going to talk about some of the ways to look at what's going on to see if we can't find you an edge to get you through these difficult times. Let's get that started for you right now. Roger, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining me again today.
You bet. Thanks for having me again.
Well, you bet. I think it's exciting that you're willing to do this and to be a resource for people out there. Obviously, you've got the heart of somebody that likes to teach concepts and things like that. So I appreciate it because, with everything that's going on, if we can give just anybody out there a piece of advice or a tip or some new knowledge that'll help them kind of turn what's going on, from lemons into lemonade, I think that'd be great. And so I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. Again, thanks for having me. And it's fun to share, things that I've learned that I share with my students. It's fun to have an opportunity to share with some others just to see if it gives somebody an idea. It'd be the goal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so today we're going to talk about some different concepts. I'm going to kind of let you kind of run with it a little bit. And then after you explain these concepts and do a little bit of teaching, then we're going to talk about maybe some ideas that people might be looking at during this current situation where they might be able to generate some extra revenue, maybe even start a business or pivot to take advantage of what's going on right now and help them get through. Does that sound right?
That sounds like a good plan to me.
Okay. Well, where would you like to begin?
Well, I think what got me, after we visited last time, what got me thinking about this was what I'm doing in my classes right now. And so I've got a marketing course, and it's pretty traditional course I've taught for a while. And I guess the number one learning outcome of a marketing class for me is how can a student become more strategic, think more strategically. And you couldn't really get into a better, case study than what we have happening right today with COVID-19 and coronavirus and the impact in the ag industry. And so, again, teaching these things to my students, it got me thinking about a couple of strategies that I thought really fit for today's world. And so if it's okay, I may go over those, and then maybe they generate some questions along the way, if that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay, the first one I wanted to go over is something called the marketing mix. It's really normal in all marketing courses. And the marketing mix has always been labeled as the 4 Ps, and that's product, price, place, and promotion. And so those are kind of the 4 Ps. If you started a business, someone would say, what is your marketing mix? What are you, what's your product? What are you selling? Where are you going to sell it? The place? How are you going to promote it? Which is promotion. And then finally, the last one is, what are you going to price it as? But in my marketing classes, I kind of throw that over to the side because that's really not a whole lot of strategy in that. The one I like to talk about is something called the SIVA model. And that's SIVA. And really, if you take the 4 Ps in marketing and you start with the first one, which would be the product. Of course, I'm writing notes as I do this because I have to write. What the marketing mix today for most companies before this, and of course after this, is the product is no longer just an item or service that you sell. It really needs to be thought of as a solution. So that's the S for SIVA.
Okay.
So our ag products today offer lots of solutions. Some of those are nutritional. Some of those are just taste and preference meeting. Some of those are location. Some of those are even the way they're grown. Grass-fed beef example versus, more commercially grain-fed finished beef. So products today aren't just an item. They're really a solution. They have a fit in the marketplace. And so if you are building a business, I think the SIVA model, along with the 4 Ps, normal marketing, kind of help maybe step you further to be strategic. And so the first one is an S for solution.
Okay.
How is a product a solution? And then I have some examples of things I've seen, but let's go through the rest of it. So the other part is promotion, and promotion today is more about information. A good example is the Moink product that's out there, where they're selling online products. Right away, when you go to their website, you go right away to the farmers, and they highlight the farmers where they source product from.
Mm-hmm.
And so their product is a certain fit or a certain solution. But when they promote it, it's not just about promoting what they sell, it's about informing people. And so today in marketing, a lot of businesses are pushing more information out there, not just promoting what they do, but educating. So in the SIVA model, S is solution, I is information. And then price. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I want to ask you, when you talk about pushing information out, from my side of the coin, I always refer to that as content marketing. Am I talking about the same thing as you are?
I believe yes, you are.
Okay.
You're really educating people, right, with content.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. The next one I really like in the 4 Ps, price, is like this ugly thing. Like, how much are you charging for something? Oh my God, you're going to charge me? It's almost thought of as a bad thing. But really, you want to get away from the price conversation. You want to move to the value conversation.
Okay.
What's it worth? And today in agriculture, that's where really our organics or our grass-feds or our locally sourced products, it's not so much about having the cheapest ground beef anymore, even though that's still a strategy. But it's about having a certain kind of product that you want to sell. And so the 4 Ps of marketing, price, product, place, promotion, the price is really now today more about value. What does it offer?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is place. Really, place is now out the window. I had before someone a long time ago, you probably heard it, how do you succeed in business? Location, location,
right.
Location.
Right.
And that's not really true anymore. You can one of my former students is originally from Colombia, and so now he's here in Houston, Texas, and sent me some coffee the other day when he called to just check in with me. And it's been a little over a decade since he was a student of mine, but he's now in the export-import business, really the bean roasting business for these small coffee houses that are all around that have become popular.
Mm-hmm.
His product comes from a long way away, and he doesn't have to be by that product. He can get that product in, process it, bag it, brand it, and get it out. So access is now really the form of place. It's just people need to have access. So I just wanted to throw out an interesting idea to have people start thinking about their business. Look at it from the SIVA model perspective.
Okay.
It might create some strategy. So that's this idea of the SIVA model. That's one that I think is valuable. Another model that I think is, and I say model, you know what I mean? It's just an acronym, set of
mm-hmm.
acronyms for marketing, is called pest analysis. I don't know if you've ever heard of that concept.
No.
And pest analysis is looking at a business like we have today, and are you going to be affected or impacted by something external to you? And with COVID-19, everyone would say, yes, I have been affected in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So pest analysis is before you ever get in the middle of that, or if you're in the middle of being affected, pest analysis is a way for you to break up the conversation. And the first way to break up that conversation with pest analysis is P. It's P-E-S-T, and it actually has an L-E on the end of it for pestle. But pest analysis is there a political impact to your business?
Okay.
So are there political things that influence your business? What are they? Can you list them? Of course, once you list them, then you want to start thinking about how do you strategize to manage that. But businesses can be affected by a political environment, and that's a pretty normal one. Businesses can also be affected by an economic environment, which there's an economic impact right now with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, again, listing out those things that affect you economically. Is there a social impact to your business? I look at right now at some of the runs that we've had on products, and then like you mentioned before, then the supply buildup of product
right.
that maybe can't even get moved through the supply chain. Social influence plays a large role in some of that. So are you affected through social tools? And then the last one is technology. Are you affected by technology. And so those are the four parts of what we call pest. And along the way, those create some opportunities. Social distancing right now is the one that I pull out of pest. That would be, a connection. And I've got a friend that works in the meat packing industry, and I was just talking to him the other day, and he was mentioning that one of their problems is not really with supply right now. They have the supply, but a big problem they have, it's important to get in front of these meat buyers in these large retail chains. If you can't get an appointment with a meat buyer to get a feel for orders and kind of make a personal connection to them, if you can't get that connection to happen because you're not allowed to right now, you're about to lose that business. If someone else is another buyer or supplier of meat, if they figure out how to mitigate that problem through pest analysis, through social blocks, can they use technology to fix that problem? And actually, it was interesting. That's what he said's happening. We're doing all these Zoom meetings. I'm doing the Zoom meetings with my students and meetings with groups that I work with, normally face-to-face, or Blackboard Collaborate, right? Everybody's meeting online, right? Doing different things. Our church, even has Sunday school on Zoom. So it's just kind of odd. So these things are happening, and technology is allowing us to fit into the social blocks that have happened. And in my friend's meat buying experience, he said they've got ag communication companies that used to do a lot of PR or digital marketing. Well, they've bridged the gap quick, and you can pay them, and they will help create a meeting online between you and that buyer and get them on the screen and get you to talk to them and talk to them about the product you've got, and let's get some product moved. What can we look at, positioning, or what can we look at scheduling that you guys would buy in this next month?
So can I ask you a follow-up on that? So that's an interesting practical application that you just brought up. So over the course of the last couple of months, I can think of 2 guests right off the bat who had agricultural marketing and public relations firms that they had started. And one of those interviews I did after the shutdown all began. And so she and I were talking about this and talking about the realities of our business and what we were facing going forward into this. And what you're saying is that people who are in that business, they've pivoted real quick once this started to start facilitating these online meetings for people to meet. And they're facilitating that as some sort of a fee structure for that. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's the way I understood it. It makes a whole lot of sense as a new business model.
Now that's interesting because I think that somebody who, so let's just take me for example, is when I hear you say that, I have used Zoom quite a bit. So my first reaction to hearing you say that is, why would somebody pay me to set up a Zoom meeting when setting up a Zoom meeting seems to be very simple? But I think maybe that's a mistake that some entrepreneurs make because they don't realize there is value in that knowledge you already have. So am I right about that, or is there more sophistication to this that I'm not imagining as I think of this pivot?
Yeah, and I'm kind of right with you. The details of it would be above my knowledge base, but I just, in talking with this friend of mine, if you are in that business, you're very knowledgeable about meat and cuts of meat and supply and grade and value attributes, right, of your supply chain. You're very aware of all that. That's what you do. But you might not, and you're able to email and you do the basic things. But if you were to facilitate an online discussion with someone, that might not be easy to do. Just the simple Zoom call. It's more than a Zoom call. I'm sure they're connecting up, but they're also doing things like probably sharing files.
Okay.
They may be sharing inventory, right? They may be sharing schedules. So I think there's probably a lot of things that ag communications folks are able to bridge a quick gap. And then the other is just to get that meat buyer on the phone. These ag marketing companies have a relationship with these buyers as well.
Sure.
So they're probably able to leverage relationships. And I think there's where the value comes in. And if you're that meat seller and you're just needing to get an appointment with these people, you're not sure how to do that. You know how to do it in the normal ways. You call them up, say, hey, I'm going to take you to lunch, or I'm going to come meet you at the warehouse, or let's get together and talk about this, but you can't do all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, one person's challenge becomes another person's opportunity.
Yeah.
If you have that skill set.
Okay.
So I think they're probably doing a lot of different things that I wouldn't be accustomed to and know exactly. But anyway, I think there's value to add there, or an opportunity.
Yeah, and I just wanted to stop on that just for a second because from my experience, I think a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, a lot of small business people, is when they develop a knowledge base doing something and it becomes kind of second nature, it becomes easy to them to do that, then I think they can lose sight of the value in that knowledge because they go, why would anyone pay me to do this? It's so easy. But they're totally discounting all the time they've spent developing that skill.
I agree completely, and it really goes back to that first concept I talked about, the SIVA model. If you think your business is just a simple product that you move out there,
mm-hmm.
you're always going to be downplaying the true value you offer.
Okay.
And so I think the SIVA model kind of pushes companies and entrepreneurs to look at what really are they offering? What are they fixing? What's their solution, and how is that valuable?
Mm-hmm.
And so if your solution is facilitating communications, then this kind of stuff ought to fall right into your wheelhouse, if you will. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Well, I kind of threw you off track, but I wanted to park on that for a second. So let's move on to your next part. Yeah.
So we got kind of this SIVA model, makes you look at your business, your marketing mix differently, maybe, if that's the case, to help. This pest analysis lets you break through 4 areas that you ought to think on, like what influences you politically, economically, social, technology, and then what strategies come out of that. The last one that I wanted to share is more common. In fact, we were talking before, and you said you're familiar with it, but it's called SWOT analysis, and it gets used a lot. I've seen SWOT analysis used in regular business or entrepreneurial discussions. I've seen SWOT analysis used in educational opportunities too. So
mm-hmm.
it's really kind of a real common approach. And so, of course, the 4 things are, number one, that most everyone's familiar with, but just to talk about them, is strengths. You just jot down what you're good at. And that's probably the way I like to look at strengths. In agriculture, I think we're a classic group that just doesn't like to talk about what we're good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for us to say what we're good at. It's just kind of I just do it. It's not a big deal. But you should write down, what are you good at? What are you comfortable at? Weaknesses are also hard to talk about, but I like to say it's what you need help with.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that I need help with? Once again, back to our meet buyers and meeting online to collaborate this. Maybe that is your weakness, right? So you seek someone out to help you facilitate that better, because that's not what you're good at. But strengths and weaknesses are the first part of SWOT, and usually businesses or entrepreneurs write these down. They're very internal. You know what I mean? So they are you. If you're writing down SWOT analysis, you're writing down strengths, what you're good at, weaknesses, what you need help with, but they're all internal to you. Then you switch gears and you really look at external things, and those would be opportunities and threats. And so opportunities are, what is out there in the market that you see as a good thing? What are good things that are out there? If you look at right now in our market, opportunities really for a food marketing business is people aren't really comfortable going to the grocery store as much.
Mm-hmm.
They got to wait in line outside in some places, 6 feet away.
Right.
They've got to. They should have put a mask on maybe, and they're looking at that and saying, I just don't know if I want to do that. That's an external area or an external thing going on out there that really is an opportunity for a food marketing company. And then if you go to the last one is threats, what would hurt you? So what could hurt
mm-hmm.
you externally out there? And so these are just some tools that normally we talk about, but a lot of people stop right there. They just bullet out those 4 categories, and then they say, oh, I should come up with a good idea. But really what you want to do is you want to match, and then you want to convert. And that's probably the last thing to, academics. And we could talk about some examples that I can see.
Okay.
But matching is when you take what you're good at, that's your strength, right? And you match them to opportunities that are out there. Then you have what we call matching. So a good example would be going to some of these. There's a fish market company called Giovanni's Fish Market. I met them actually in California, in the Santa Barbara area. I was out there working with their ag teachers and took a little tour along the coast and, stopped at this pier area where fishing boats were coming in, and there's a sign up at Giovanni's, and they've got salmon out on ice, and they're literally just throwing them up from the boat to the docks, and kind of putting them there on ice, and people were just walking up and buying them, and I was amazed. I was like, man, that would be cool to have fresh salmon at home. And guy standing there just gave me a card and said, "Oh, we ship." So he saw an opportunity and gave me a card, and so I bought some product. But right now, what they are good at is having fresh fish, fresh, supplies, right? And today people are looking for the opportunity to buy that stuff, but they don't want to go to the store. So a good example is that kind of stuff right now, and that's a match. The other one is convert, and this is where I think companies get very strategic. They take basically weaknesses that they have, things they need help with, right? Or they take the threats that could hurt them right now, and they convert those into opportunities. And a good example is like what we talked about, these ag communications or ag marketing folks. There are things out there that are creating these threats where their customers can't meet anymore. But that just gives them an opportunity if they can convert that and create these solutions, such as we talked about in this facilitating online meetings. And so I think that conversion helps. We've got a local beef market here that is not very far from our house. That it really, if you want to go buy steaks and hamburger, a friend of mine said, "Oh, I just go to the meat market. I know they've got product there, and they're even selling other things like toilet paper. You know what I mean? Other things they would normally sell." But there's a lot of businesses that have done that. They've converted their business that normally feeds and supplies only a specific need of a customer, and they've expanded that to supply more needs. And I was like, brilliant. So I'm sure the guy didn't sit down and say, "Let me do SWOT analysis and get this done." Probably pretty sure that's not what happened. But these frames or these ideas, you hope they just create opportunities for producers. But those are some things I think interesting.
Well, it's interesting as you talk about these. So like the SWOT analysis, as you explain that, to me, I feel like some people probably do these things instinctively. But then there's other people who want to be involved in business, want to be involved in entrepreneurship, who this type of stuff does not come naturally to them. And so learning it in this way, it helps them to overcome that particular obstacle because it's not their natural tendency to look at things this way.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, I think, what education does is it kind of tries to open students or open an entrepreneur's mind to an idea. I think instinctively, you're right. A lot of people do this automatically. It reminds me back when I was in graduate school, Dr. Ron Lacewell is a professor there at A&M. And anyway, he did linear modeling. So I took this class in modeling. And so you're supposed to model a farm. And I took my in-laws, or large-scale rice and corn producers, and I took their farm and modeled it, program-wise on a program and the linear modeling system. And basically the answer at the end was telling them how many acres they should plant of corn and rice and soybeans and, kind of here's the best way for you to move forward. And when I got the model finally to run, it spit out an answer, right?
Yep.
And I went to my professor and said, "Hey, I got an answer. It quit throwing errors. It's done. It ran it. What do you think?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "Your father-in-law is the one that's made a living doing this. You should probably see if our answer's right." And it kind of stepped me back because I thought the whole point was I was doing this. And he said, "Oh, Lord, no." Instinctively, he's been in business a long time. He knows the answers.
Yeah.
Our efforts are to try to simulate that and see if we can make sense of what he has done. But he's the expert. So I think a lot of businesses are the expert. These are just ideas to maybe help them think a little bit differently. But instinctively, I think you're right. A lot of people do these things. But it is neat to see. In talking with my friend in the meat business, he was talking about that. While their industry, large-scale retail businesses, kind of are struggling, lots of uncertainty of product flow, a lot of small-scale producers have actually got kind of an edge right now in the market. So that's kind of fun to see.
That's interesting. Where is that edge coming from? What are they seeing in terms of that?
Well, the marketing companies like Moink be a good example. That's the I think it's MOINK, but their beef marketing company is online marketing of these niche farms, and right now, they're just booming. And so the small scale meat market that's not too far from where we live. I mean, I've gone there and bought some product because you get good quality steaks, good quality cuts, aged. You get all these attributes that you can't always get in the grocery store. But now, they're a main player in the market. Just daily consumption is to go to these stores. And so, if you go to the large retailers, you're going to wait out line out in front of the store. And anyway, it's a different environment, right? So those are the opportunities I think small scale producers, the Giovanni's Fish Market, the folks and there's several others, but these mail order online food companies right now are kind of booming, and whereas other large scale areas might struggle.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just here in my local area at the beginning of this, I noticed that the demand for locally produced food, a half a beef or a whole pig or something like that, all of a sudden just took off. And I had one customer that bought a half a beef from us, and I was talking to them, about all the different things I talk about with our beef and why we like it and this and that. And he kind of turned to me and he said, "We just want to get our freezer filled because of this deal." I mean, he didn't care about anything else. He just wanted to fill that freezer. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And you wonder how long that demand that is driven by that will last. You wonder how long that'll keep going.
Yeah, definitely temporary, right? In the price swings, that's what another, article I was looking at was the price changes. The large scale processors, they really aren't allowed to move up in price a lot. If the cost of their product goes up because the commodity market goes up or goes down, they're only allowed to move so much. And so, the opportunities for small marketers is probably a lot bigger. They're under a lot less scrutiny. But that is definitely going to be temporary. I think the interesting thing is the relationships that get built in this market of today.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because
those could be valuable.
Yeah, you get an opportunity to bring somebody in and keep them as a customer, whereas before this happened, you might not have had that opportunity.
Absolutely. And really long term, that goes back to SWOT analysis. Today it's a threat that you may have a supply shortage. And so if you capitalize on it and go up in price too much, maybe you get a customer, but they're reluctant. But you have an opportunity right now as a marketer to build relationships. And I think that's what marketing is all about, is building relationships. And so there are a lot being established right now that didn't have that opportunity, like you said before.
Right.
And so it's a turbulent time, right? It's a scary time. But then when you push past that and look, man, there seems to be a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. I did outside of my agricultural broadcasting business, and all of this is about giving me the ability to be home on my farm. We've got our small farm here in Idaho, and we've always had chickens, but I've never sold eggs. We've always just consumed them or given them away or something like that. But we sell beef and we sell pork. And I did an episode of this show, I don't know, about 3 months ago or something like that I titled "Eggs as a Loss Leader." I started selling eggs, and it was like a slap across the face. I don't know why. I had never thought of this before. But all of a sudden, I've got a lot more people contacting me to buy eggs because they want them now. They're using them up quicker. They're easier to buy because they're less expensive than a half a beef or something like that. And all of a sudden, that gave me the opportunity to develop customers. And every time I sold a carton of eggs to somebody, I handed them a business card and said, "Hey, if you ever want to buy beef or pork, I raise it, and I'd be happy to sell you a half a beef or a whole pork or half a pig or whatever." And I don't know why I'd never thought of that in all those years, but just like what I was talking about with the selling of the eggs, to help me develop those relationships right now, what's going on at the grocery stores gives people a lot of chance to get in touch with people and prove to them they should be customers of theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great example, right? It's like you said, it slaps you upside the face, but
Yeah.
these are these opportunities that are coming out, and these marketing concepts are just ways to try to identify them, and like you're already identifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you mentioned eggs. My kids, we've got small farm as well, and run about 25 cows, and so for us, we sell them, just as a whole. We finish out, maybe a few. Mm-hmm. But eggs and chickens is something our neighbors have, and we get some eggs from them every now and then. Well, exactly what you said is true. We were like, hey, y'all have any more eggs, or we need to go buy some? And they're like, man, we got everybody trying to get eggs from us.
Yeah.
Because they have more laying hens. And so it's one of those that I thought right away. My son even said, man, we need to build a chicken house and get some eggs as a business. And so it's funny where the opportunities are coming about. And it's also really funny to me. It takes me back probably about 12 years ago, but I took some students to the National Cattlemen's Association. Mm-hmm. And they had the whole supply chain up on stage, and producers could just ask questions. And one of the producers asked the marketing person up there, was Molly McAdams. She was from HEB, but that's just a retailer here in Texas, a large retailer, grocery retailer. They asked her about the value of beef in the U.S. and how to convince consumers of its quality, and et cetera, et cetera. And so she said, well, I don't know if that's really for me to answer, but what we do know today is that consumers, this is before, of course, all this is a decade ago. Mm-hmm. Consumers want to know more about where their food comes from. They want to know more about the production process, back to information instead of just promotion, right?
Right.
And they attribute value, back to Siva's value approach. They attribute value in different ways. They don't attribute it really to grade anymore, like a choice and select. A lot of consumers don't even know what the difference is.
Right.
So the things that we use in our industry to value things aren't the way consumers value them. And she mentioned Europe. European markets are a lot more fragmented and a lot more local production areas. And anyway, she just said a decade ago, that's where this is going. And I've seen that advance pretty fast, like your example of your small farm and selling products. I see it advance. And then you look at something today like COVID-19 coronavirus, it advances that even further. Small local supply chains are getting a lot more attention. So that's kind of a neat opportunity.
Yeah, it really is. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, not to get stuck on talking about eggs, but just to give you an example of what's going on. I actually just did an interview yesterday with an FFA student from Imperial, Nebraska. And this episode is going to air, I think it's going to air early May. But I did an interview with her. She's got a mobile chicken coop business in a very agricultural area. So basically she rents out the coop and the layers to people who want to raise their own farm fresh eggs. And then she delivers it, and then they're just ready to go. They got eggs the next day. And I was talking to her about this, and the city of Imperial does not allow backyard chickens, which limits her customer base to just people who live in unincorporated areas around Imperial, Nebraska. And she said, I need more chicken coops. I've got so much demand right now. So even in a situation like that, where she can't sell to anybody who lives within the city limits during this crisis, she's out of supply. She needs to build more coops because she has a demand she's trying to fulfill. So it is interesting what's going on and how that can lead to other opportunities.
Yeah, these I've heard them called chicken tractors. Have you heard of that term?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so these little mobile chicken tractors. That's what my neighbor actually has, one that he can pull behind his tractor and moves around. That way he just moves it kind of around his pasture and really kind of more around his house. But it's the opportunities, and FFA members are a great example of a micro view of our ag economy, and it's amazing the opportunities they see that maybe we don't all see.
That is absolutely true.
That's a cool example. Yeah, I just looked up Imperial on our record book system. They've got some good students doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are there other opportunities we could talk about right now for this episode, or should we call it good and think on it some more?
Well, I think these things just hopefully create some ideas. Back to where I started, with my marketing class, I think the number one goal is to try to help people think strategically, out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people write books on this stuff, so it's not easy to do. And but looking at your product today, I think from a value standpoint, what a consumer see it to be valuable as, I think that's important. I think the political and economic and social impacts to businesses today are something to jot down. What are those things shaping your business? Whether you like them or not, they're shaping you. And then SWOT analysis is really just a form of what out there is an opportunity and how can I connect what I do to that. And so, that little bit of a review is hopefully listeners can take that away. That would be cool to share some of those. And then there's just so many examples that we've already talked about. So I don't know. Those are the things I hope to share. Hopefully that was helpful.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you so much for coming on again and sharing this, Roger. I really do appreciate it. And I know we're helping people out there during this unique time.
Well, thanks for having it, and thanks for doing the show that you do. I think it's cool to see someone focusing on our ag sector and showcasing some of these cool FFA chapters and students that are just doing, just really stellar work, really innovative things that are, they kind of provide you interview them, but don't they provide a lot of comfort to know that where our future's headed, who's leading it.
Yeah, 100%. And what you said earlier about them having ideas we don't think of, man, these students in FFA, they get told to go out and start an enterprise, and they just haven't been beat down by life, and so they're willing to try any idea, and some of these ideas work like gangbusters. It's really incredible.
Yeah, there was one that if we got a second that I can share, I just thought of. It's been a year or so ago, but I'd be curious to go find out what this kid's doing. But I had an ag teacher call me about our record book on how can he document these things. And I said, well, what's he got as a business? He said, well, he took a bunch of scrap lumber from my shop, and his mom wanted a raised garden bed. So he took some scrap 2x6s and 1x, and he just 45'd the corners and drilled the holes and screwed them together and built a little, 4-foot by 2-foot garden bed. And then he unscrewed it all and taped it together, the boards, and bagged the screws that he had at the shop and took it home. And his mom said, oh, wow, this is great. And he put it together at the house. And so kind of an urban ag area, right? And so then the kid came back and asked the teacher, hey, can I have that other scrap lumber in there? And the teacher said, sure, have at it. Before he knew it, he had emptied out his scrap lumber pile and built about 20 of these little raised bed boxes and was selling them for $100 to his mom's friends.
Okay.
And so the ag teacher was like, is that a project? And I was like, I think it's a really good project. And so that was his entrepreneurship, was building raised beds. And so he went to the local feed stores and showed them, here's what I can do. I can put this stuff together, and DIY, kind of do-it-yourself folks can just – so he made a set of instructions. He made a 4-foot version, a 6-foot version, an 8-foot version, a 2x2 version. And anyway, I just thought it was innovative, and I thought, wow, that is brilliant.
Yeah, that really is.
So that was his business. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So raising your own kind of thing, that kind of fits this.
Well, that young student would be a perfect fit for my show. I don't know if you could dig up the name or the advisor's name, but I'd be happy to interview him and profile him here on Off Farm Income as well.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, it was a great example. In fact, it was such a good one that I made an example case study. So when I teach record keeping on a particular entrepreneurship business, you're not raising hogs, you don't have a show animal,
right.
You're not farming a crop. You're doing something different like this.
Right.
I've had a lot of teachers just say, hey, I could do that with a kid. So I'll try to dig up who that was. That'd be cool to share.
Yeah, very cool. Well, great. Well, Roger, thank you again. And, I look forward to talking to you in the future.
You bet. Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. I hope that helped. And until next time, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.